I guess I'll go ahead and get started. We may still have a few more people joining us, either in person or online. This is So Grow and Learn with the library. We do have kits still available. Most of you have already signed up, but they come with a couple of small starting containers, a packet of starter dirt, in this case soilless mix, and a variety of seeds. This session has the Tonda di Parigi carrot, the jewel mix nasturtium, sugar snap pea tender sweet, sweet alyssum, carpet of snow, spinach, oceanside, tatsoi, and the zinnia humilla mix. There are little labels included so that you can color code everything and write as you want. We've got a guide, and there is a kids list of books. Please do let me know if you have any trouble hearing, with coloring sheet on back, and a short version of the list that you have in front of you, which has the QR code on the back for those who want to access the longer version. It also has a grow bag, which has training tools, and a saucer. Now, on to the fun stuff. We have a lot of resources. And today I'm going to be highlighting some of them. First off, some of our newest books. This one is Holistic Homesteading, A Guide to Sustainable and Regenerative Lifestyle, which covers a little bit of everything from pickling to growing your own. There's American Roots. This one covers lessons and inspirations from designers reimagining home gardens. And you've got the Seasonal Garden, creative planting combinations. You can see they've got quite a variety of options. Ground Cover Revolution, if you're tired of mowing, this is an option. How to Plant a Room and Grow a Happy Home, for those more interested in houseplants. And The First Time Homesteader. Now, we have a lot of other books that are just currently checked out, but those are a selection of the new ones, and you can check any of these out at the end. This is what you've got in front of you. It starts off as a selection on getting started. So that includes things like the Seed Starter Handbook, some DVDs that we have from great courses, plant propagation, saving and starting seeds, Here you can see a few more of the new books. And if we don't have the book in, we can put it on hold for you. We've also got the fun of soil sciences. So if you really want to get into the nitty-gritty, this goes into the biology, chemistry, how to really add nutrients appropriately, and utilize the already excellent ecosystem that's in the ground. There'll also be information about things like seed swaps, which you may have seen advertised in some papers occasionally, or as a gardening get-together option. If you grow it from seed, most varieties can be harvested for seed. The issue is if they are hybrid plants, then you won't necessarily get the same thing as what you planted, because it reverts to one or the other of the parental lines. Wow. There's, of course, attracting native pollinators. If you want to get into information on how to get your local native bees and butterflies, moths, you can get into composting as well. Now, each city does have their own rules around how you do composting. So you will probably want to check and see exactly what where you live says. There are a wide variety of different methods out there, from your standard build a bin and layer it to there is actually a person here in Rolling Meadows who practices vermiculture as a commercial business. On a bit more of talking about what you might want in your garden, there's beneficial bugs. This includes not only the pollinators, but also the native bug control. So your ladybugs, your spiders, your parasitic wasps, all of those wonderful creatures. And although this may be a controversial thing, some weeds are actually pretty useful. Believe it or not, dandelions were intentionally brought to pretty much every single continent because they provided a early source of nutrition, and they grow almost everywhere. Now, in terms of compost, Palatine Township does have their own compost pile, which they will allow people to go and collect some of. You have to do the digging and carry it away in your own.
Is that in this booklet somewhere?
Yes, that one is right after the soil science. The Metropolitan Water Reclamation District did have a one. It is currently on hold. So I'm not sure when they're going to restart that one. But those are at least a couple options. Yeah, there are lots and lots and lots of other books that we've got. You've got your basic gardening made simple from Better Homes and Gardens. got the no work garden, for those that want the least amount of effort. There are a lot of specialized guides that go into things like Midwest gardening or edible gardening. Now, there's methodologies out there like the square foot gardening, where you are trying to pack in as much as you can into a small space. Which relates to container gardening. There's plant partners. The advantage of these is that with companion planting, you get some natural resistance to bugs and wildlife, and sometimes soil nematodes as well. So for example, you might plant marigolds and nasturtiums to help deter pests, as well as marigolds naturally help with nematodes in the soil. Another one on the same topic is vegetables love flowers. Tons of different choices. We do have How to Garden When You Rent, for those who are balancing what they want with what they can do. Container gardening is also useful for working around that. You can plant self-watering containers, either that you make yourself or that you buy. Edible doesn't mean it has to be boring. You can plant it as an ornamental garden as well. There are indeed, and I have another book on the other side here that goes into people who have decided to go into edible yards. Edible yards. Which of course is not going to bounce out at me right now. But it's out there. You can get into landscape design, of course, as well. Whether you want to go for the manicured look or the natural Midwest prairie look. Couple of fun things. You can regrow plants if you have the desire, from pits and cuttings, anything from ginger, Jerusalem artichokes, which is actually a native foodstuff and will multiply, radishes, lots and lots of different options. Now, some of them you'll want to put some patience in. Just because you can grow an avocado from a pit doesn't mean it'll grow fast. We also have a couple of books on growing mushrooms. So if you want to get into that, it's not necessarily as complicated as you might think. They now sell kits where you just water the box and stick it under your counter and it'll sprout in a cabinet. Now, this time of year, you may also be starting to think about, given our rains, how to work around weather and plan for it. We do have books on that as well. Whether you're looking at simply resisting it, whether you're looking at something where you're not going to have to water as much. Native plants also are a way to do less and still have a lovely garden. You can also do perennials. This one is fun because they've painted all of the illustrations. So you have that traditional watercolor look. You can get into perennials, all sorts of different options there. And of course, this time of year, you're starting to see bulbs pop up around that people have planted. We have a lot of different books on that, but this particular one is written by someone who actually goes out into the wild and collects new varieties for cultivation. So he talks about where he's gone, what he's found, the different characteristics, and how to grow them successfully. Now, just because you have a shady spot, or for that matter, a shady yard, it doesn't mean you have to skip out on all the fun. There's still lots and lots of different options out there. This is a very small sampling of the collections that we've got already on the shelves. You can also garden exclusively for cut flowers. Some people do, or partially. We have a number of different resources on that. If you are looking at that, you may get into things like dahlias, where you plant the tuber, leave it there, and dig it up again once it gets to fall. And then it lives in your garage or some other sheltered place. For shade garden, you've got things like the heucheras and heucherellas. Many of these are native, so they do quite well. If you want to try something a little slightly more challenging, there's the peonies and hydrangeas. Hydrangeas in particular, being bushes like lilacs, can get to be quite large, so check before you plant. Which you should do with most plants anyway, because a lot of them get bigger than you think they will. You could also look into rock gardening if you want something that's not going to get very tall, or if you're dealing with a yard that just doesn't have a lot of soil. Or you could focus on containers, which can give you, visual, but also you can plant them for scent. So there are so many options. If you decide you really want to get into the nitty-gritty, we have things like the garden insects of North America, so you can figure out exactly what's attacking your plants. There are a number of apps out there that can help. You might want to double check it because the apps are not always reliable. As I found when I pointed one at a ladybug relative that got into my house, and it told me it was a 2-spotted ladybug, and I'm sitting there looking at it going, it has 3 spots on each wing. So that's not possible.
Elder bug?
No, I suspect it was a Japanese lady beetle. I figure there's so many of those that are almost but not quite. It's worth trying to check before I go after it, because I figure the invasive insects, fair game. If it's not invasive, I might go through the effort to take it and put it back outside. If you want to get more into history, we have 7 flowers and how they shaped our world. There's a similar one, I know for tomatoes. We also have other encyclopedias like this one on container plants. A lot of these do have full color images, so you're not necessarily going off of just ink illustrations. There are a few like that, but not too many. So if we go a little bit further down here, see a few more of the books that we have available. And yes, for those of you who have deer problems, there are ways to work around that, or at least discourage them. Although that doesn't mean they won't eat it, it just means they're less likely to. If you get really enthused about gardening, in theory, people can plant their roofs. Definitely go through the zoning committee for that. We do have books on pruning. Most things you prune in the fall, but there are a few that you will want to prune springtime. A few more of our old books down here. Books on regrowing things. Lots and lots of container gardening. And I will hold up the QR code again at the end for anyone watching at home. Like I said, this is just a few. There are so many more. The advice books range dramatically. You can focus on gardening innovations if you're interested in learning about everything from seed bombs to how lawnmowers came to be. You can look into the Dictionary of Science for gardeners if you want to focus on the scientific side of things. You can learn more about fungi, which exist extensively underground. The fruiting bodies that we see up top are just the tip of the iceberg. And they play a major role in the ecosystem. You can get more plant history. Learn from gardening icons. Just to show you. So this is what the carrots that are in the kit look like. They're small, round, and best cooked. But you can grow them in pretty much any container. And they mature quite quickly, 55 days. There's the nasturtium, and those are edible, both the leaves and the flowers. There's a peppery flavor, so treat the leaves the way you would arugula. The tender sweet snap pea is resistant to Fusarium 1 and powdery mildew. That is pop-up bed. This is the radish that's included in the kit. So when you pull it out of the ground, it might not be that vibrantly purple. The oceanside spinach, again, has quite a bit of resistance to a number of different plant diseases and bacteria. The alyssum is a very small relative of the cabbage family. It is edible, both flowers and leaves. Works great as a border, which is what it's usually sold as. The tatsoi is a member of the mustard family. It has a very mild flavor compared to what we generally think of as mustard. The leaves are somewhat spoon-shaped and grow in a rosette. I try to make sure that we've got something different in each kit. Of course, the zinnias, which are native to the Americas, as are the nasturtiums, for that matter. Now, there's a lot of information out there via the extension, which is the university services from land-grant universities. They were given a mandate to offer public education as recompense for getting the land. So you will have detailed information about more cool season vegetables, planting dates, when to start seeds, how to do it yourself, how to harden off, which is acclimating the seeds that you started indoors to the outdoors so that it's not too much of a shock to their systems. They have information on growing specific types of plants. In this case, they've got peas. I've got a link for the radish guide, spinach guide, as an example of a different extension service. This one's through Cornell University. They have their carrots. As you can see, this is the same variety that we'll be growing. We've got nasturtiums, peas, and sweet alyssum. Now, the Illinois extension has blogs that they have. They've got info sheets. They have events. They also have their very own YouTube page, which will cover a little bit of everything. And they have selected playlists so that you can look at, for example, if you want to figure out how to manage garlic mustard, which is an invasive edible and aptly named. You've got information on soil health, food preservation. There was a Southern Illinois fruit and vegetable school. More information on testing. Lots and lots of information. So you can probably find almost anything you're interested in, something to sit back and enjoy. Now, they do have a number of very specific things. There is an Illinois planting guide that's in a PDF, and that one is copyright 2022. It covers which zone you're in, and it goes into, there's a page specifically for Northern Illinois planting dates. So you can see we're early for a lot of things still. That's because we're not sure what the weather's going to do. It's still bouncing around. This week we'll hit the 70s, but we're still seeing lows in the low 30s. So you can plant some things right now, and others you can try to plant and see what happens. They also have how to care for your spring bulbs after they're done flowering. So for those who are trying to figure out the best way to care for them, or how to make sure that you get the best chance of them reblooming, This will give you basic information. They do have a 4 Seasons Gardening webinar series. This is ongoing. So you can see they did have March 28th one, Plant Personalities Defined. April 25th, they have Native Plants, Sequence of Blooms. Invasive Plants on May 16th. And of course, they've also got more information and prior editions of the program on their recorded YouTube list. Another lovely resource is the Plant Information Service, which is at the Chicago Botanic Garden. Now, this is still staffed mainly by the master gardeners, which means it's largely volunteers that have considerable training. So you can also email them. I expect that with the boom in gardening in the last several years, it may or may not take a bit for them to get back to you, depending upon how many people they've got working on things and how many questions they've had. We do here in Rolling Meadows have a garden club. They meet monthly on Wednesday evenings, the second Wednesday of each month. And as you can see, they've got a program coming up April 12th, Composting 101. They are prepping for their yearly plant sale. June 14th, they have By the Light of the Moon, an evening garden. And in July, they have vertical gardening planned. And they meet at the community center. Craft sale, they're looking for vendors. That will be on Saturday, May 13th, 9 a.m. to 2 p.m., rain or shine, 3000 Central Road. There's also the Rolling Meadows Community Garden. That is over across the way. We've got a view here, some of the garden plots.
Where is this?
This is
Right off Salt Creek here somewhere?
right off Salt Creek, back behind the Jewel to the side. Let's see. Yeah. Here. If I pull up that, just zoom in. If you look back here, it's tucked in basically back here. I don't remember exactly where along this stretch it is, but it's back here. And then, of course, along the creek itself, you can see that the Park District has been working on letting things get back a little more towards native to help with the erosion problems and increase our native pollinators. So we get a double bonus there. In 2020, they did a information from the Chicago Botanic Garden on victory gardens, which were pushed very hard during World War II. They had 20 million gardens established, and those grew 40% of the nation's fruit and vegetables. Now, historically, this was their recommended plot for a garden for a family of 5. You would have been eating a lot of certain vegetables. Let's see if it'll let me go. So that would have been your standard row garden. Current planting would have probably done a different methodology. But certainly there's a lot of things there packed into 25 by 50 feet. Yes, it is. They've got onions in the back row, head lettuce. They're doing some, yes, they're planting second crop after you take out the first. So beets followed by collards, which are same family, just ones that's you've got the globe onions, got parsley, herbs, endive, followed by leaf lettuce, broccoli, followed by early cabbage, followed by early endive, parsnips, leaf lettuce, followed by rutabagas. And this is linked again in, let's pull up the page here.
Oh, yeah, it's last page.
Yes.
About golden melon strawberry.
We've got that right here, the QR code. So in the QR code version, every single book has a link that will go directly to its record. So when you decide you're interested in things, you can just click that link and pull up the exact number, call number that it is at. Our Great Courses collections have been co-located, so those are now back behind the nonfiction DVDs. So that's all the DVD Great Courses are in one place, and then the audio Great Courses are back with the audio books at the end of the audio nonfiction section. You can also access those online via Hoopla, and some of them are also on Canopy. So lots of different ways to get your hands on the resources that we have. Are there any questions?
I'm impressed by that World War II victory garden.
Well, thank you very much for coming. I appreciate you taking the time. Have you already got a kit?
No.
Did you sign up for one?
Yes.